Okay, so let's have an example of the application of resultant force system. So what if you are given a resultant and then you are just going to find a single force, its magnitude and its direction. So in actual application, so say we have here x axis and then this will be our y axis. So halimbawa nasa tug of war with center na nakatay lahat ng mga nuts. So we have one person exerting 240 newtons, 45 degrees with the x-axis. And then we have another person exerting 300 newton, 30 degrees with the x-axis. Ano daw yung force na i-exert ng isang person here? At ano yung dapat angle niya with respect to x-axis? So that silang lahat ay mag-move along y-axis. Yan. Bakit sila mag-move? Because there is a resultant. Or ano daw yung force na exert ni pangatlong person so that ang resultant niya will be equal to 500 newtons along y-axis. So we are going to find this angle and to find that force. Okay. So our given will be, we have a given resultant of all these three forces, F300 and then 240. Given ang resultant natin R, and that is equal to 500 Newton. And this is acting along y-axis. So we need to solve for the force F and its theta. Okay? So we all have been introduced that the resultant R is equal to the square root of the square of its components Rx and Ry. And here, our Rx is actually the summation of all forces along x-axis, and our Ry is the summation of all the forces along y-axis. But since in our example, our R is acting along y-axis, then it goes to show that our Rx is equal to 0 and our Ry is equal to R. Kasi wala namang x component yung R, only a y component. Okay? So having this one, we can solve for F. We can solve for F using equations for Rx, which is equals to summation of forces along x. And the summation of all forces along x, taking all the right forces as positive, we have, ano yung meron? Si F ay meron siyang x component. Ayan. of x. And meron siyang y component. So, ano yung component fx? Component ni f. So, we have, if the angle is with respect to x-axis, then we have fx. Ayan. Sulat mo natin, fx, component of this force. Then we have plus, since nasa right, 240. And its x component. X component ni 240. And that is 240 cosine 45. Then another x component ni 300. So we have minus, since nasa left siya. We have 300 cosine 30. So, this one, fx is f cosine of theta plus 240 cosine 45 minus 300 cosine 30 degrees. And remember that the summation of our forces along x is equal to 0. Kasi walang x component yung ating resultant. So, we have two unknowns. And thus, kailangan pa natin ng isang equation. So, ano yung isang equation natin? We can solve for f using ry, where that is equals to summation of all the forces along y-axis. And ang ry natin is actually equal to what? Our resultant, kasi along y yung ating resultant. And ano yung mga forces along y-axis? Okay, so let's see first ano yung forces along y-axis. Yan. Forces along y-axis is we have the y component of f, and that is fy, plus y component nitong 240, taking positive yung upward. So, we have a negative dito. So, minus 240 sine 45, and then we have plus 300 sine 30. So, since our summation of all forces along y is equals to ry is equals to r, and our r is equals to 500, then we have 500 is equals to f, y component of f is f sine theta, minus 240 sine 45 plus 300 sine 30. So, if you're going to solve for this one, we have f sine theta. Transpose natin to. Transpose natin yan. Pagbalik ta rin. Then, we have 500 plus 240 sine 45 minus 300 sine 30 degrees. So, solving for f, we have 500 plus 240 sine 45 minus 300 sine 30 all over sine theta. Simplifying that one para walang masyadong numbers, then we have 500 plus, okay, so 240 sine 45 is 169.71, and 300 sine 30 is 150 over sine theta. So we have f as 500 plus 169.71 minus 150. We have 519.71 sine theta. So this will be our equation 2. Okay, so we have our equation 1 here. This is our equation 1. And we substitute equation 2 to equation 1. And so we have 0 is equals to our f is 519.71 sine theta times cosine theta plus 240 cosine 45 is 240 cosine 45 is the same with 240 sine 45, and that's 169.71 minus 300 cosine 30 is equal to 259.81. So we have 0 is equals to 519.71, and this is cotangent theta plus 169.71 minus 259.81. So solving for this, simplifying, so 519.71, our cotangent is equals to 1 over tangent theta. And this one, and the answer niyan is 169.71 minus 259.81. We have a negative 90.1. Transposing, pagbalik ta rin, so we have 519.71 tangent theta is equals to 90.1. So getting for tangent theta, we just multiply that one. Then ito, ilipat natin dyan. Ayan, sige. Cross multiplying muna. Okay, so we have 90.1 tangent theta over 519.71. And so our tangent theta is equals to 519.71 over 90.1. Let us remember this one. Okay. So we have our theta here will be equal to arc tangent of 519.71 over 90.1. And we have theta as 519.71 over 90.1 of 80.16 degrees. So that will be our theta. So how do we solve for our f? And solving for f, we just need to substitute theta to equation 2. And our f is equal to 519.71 sine 80.16. And we have our value for f as 519.71 sine 80.16. We have 527.47 Newton. So that is our answer. Okay? So to check. So checking. Tama ba yung naging sagot natin? If you're going to check for this, so our resultant R should be equal to our Ry, and that should be equal to a summation of all our forces Y. So if we are going to sum all of our forces Y, taking positive yung upward direction, then we just follow this one. So we have Fy minus 240 sine 45 plus 300 sine 30 degrees. So our Fy is F sine theta, and our F is, okay, so sulat ko muna, F sine theta minus 240 sine 45 plus 300 sine 30. So we have 527.47, our value for F. Sine, and our value for theta is 80.16 degrees. Minus 240 sine 45 plus 300 sine 30. Okay. So, okay, there you go. Let's check. So, 527.47 sine 80.16 is 519.71. And then we have 240 sine 45 is 169.71. Then we have 300 sine 30 is 150. So this should be equal to 500 because our R is 500. So our summation of all Y and our R should be equal to 500. So thus, ito dapat ay mag-equal to 500. So this must equal to 500. So 519.71 minus 169.71 plus 150. And, yeah, tama siya. So, nag-equal siya. So, meaning, our answers here are correct. So, if we are going to check further, so we can use summation of all the forces along X. And dapat, and summation of forces along X must equal to 0 since Rx is equals to 0. So we have 0 is equals to F cosine theta plus 240 cosine 45 minus 300 cosine 30. So we have 0 is equals to F. Our F is 527.47 cosine 80.16 plus this one is 169.71 minus 150. So this must equal to 0. So we have 527.47 cosine 80.16 and we have 90.14, and this one is 169.71 plus 169.71 minus 150. So this must equal to 0. So 90.14. Oh, wait. So 527.47 cosine 80.16 plus 169.71. Sorry, so this is not 150. That is 300 cosine 30 is 259. 259.81. And 90.14 plus 169.71. So we have minus 259.81. Meron tayong disparity na 0.04. So, dahil yan sa mga rounding off. Okay? So, since we have our here, ito yung importante, RY should be equal to 500. 500 summation of all forces x. So that's how you solve for a single force given the resultant. So we just take a picture of this and then we can review.